Luxton.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to speak on this piece of legislation, and I want to acknowledge the Minister for bringing this to the House, and I want to acknowledge the previous members and ministers that have worked on the piece of legislation up and to this point. I just want to acknowledge some of the issues that Cameron Luxton raised in his speech, and I don't believe that anybody in this House has made out the people that work in this industry to be villains. I don't believe anyone in the House has said that. In fact, what we have heard in this House and what this piece of legislation does is acknowledges that there are people who will be impacted by this decision, as the member who spoke previously said, that have perhaps been in this industry for generations, and it is important that we do acknowledge that, and acknowledge that it's not easy for anybody to be losing their job, and particularly in this day and age. So again, nobody has accused these people of being villains, but what we have said is that the industry has basically been on notice since 2021, and there have been constant calls for improvement in the industry, and sadly, for whatever reason, it hasn't happened as it should have. And what we know is that New Zealand is a country that prides itself on its animal welfare standards. And what we see with this industry is that there is a really high risk of injury and death for these dogs when they race. Broken legs, fractured skulls, spinal injuries, heart attack and heat stroke, Madam Speaker. And after an injury, they are simply euthanised because they are no longer deemed to be profitable for those who wish to race them. In fact, Madam Speaker, according to SAFE, since December of last year, and as of the 9th of November 2025, 645 greyhounds have been injured, 93 have suffered fractures, and 17 have died. So, Madam Speaker, this decision is the right decision, and I am proud to be standing here as a member of the Labour Party that support this piece of legislation. Madam Speaker, greyhounds are gentle, social animals, and if anyone has met Zoe, Kieran McAnulty's dog, we can all attest to that. They might not be the smartest, and they may not be the prettiest, but they are, Kieran, don't judge me, but they are certainly social, they are loyal, and they are absolutely lovely animals. And it's interesting to note, as the Minister in his opening speech mentioned, that there are several other countries who have followed suit since the government announced that this was going to be happening. And as the Minister mentioned, this is going to be a staged approach to the shutdown of this industry, Madam Speaker, and that is important because it does speak to the people who are involved in the industry as far as jobs go, rehoming, and as my colleague Rachel Boyack mentioned, I do urge people, encourage people to look at adopting one of these greyhounds in order to ensure that they are sent to loving homes around the country. Madam Speaker, there were three options, I think, that were put before the government with regard to this piece of legislation. One being that they stick with the status quo, no changes. Well, that's not acceptable, Madam Speaker, to anyone, I don't think. Option two, industry continuation with increased oversight and regulation, but there were some concerns that outcomes and enforcement of animal welfare that actually wouldn't happen appropriately, that it would only make slightly better improvements. And option three, that would have the most positive impact for animal welfare, was to work through the closing down of the sector in a transitional way. So, Madam Speaker, I am pleased to be able to support this piece of legislation whilst acknowledging those that are going to be impacted by this and working with them, urge them to submit. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Honourable Minister.
Now, that was a decent length of speech.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell that Joe Luxton.
Oh, yeah. No, it's a bit like Kelston with the T, a suburb in Auckland, and Kelson without the T, a suburb in Lower Hutt.
Well, yeah, I was more thinking of Luxton versus Luxton, but anyway, Joe Luxton, I'm doing it again. She understands that the issues and had put some time into that speech. But I mean, again, the point comes through in the speech that the greyhound industry had been put on notice since 2021, and they hadn't made the changes necessary. So that really puts the lie to the previous speech where the comment was made that the industry had done everything the government had asked of them. So that's a really interesting little point there. But the other point that was made many times was around the rehoming of greyhounds. So and I think that's a really important point because we're going to have all these thousands of greyhounds coming out of racing that are going to need to go somewhere, and that's going to be a serious challenge to find homes for them because they're not going to be racing every day or in training, so they're going to need to go somewhere. So that's going to be a challenge for the SPCA to manage finding homes for
Well, Glenda Hughes, do you know if she's still CEO of Greyhound New Zealand?
You know what? I'm not sure, Sam, but
Yeah, that's one. No, because that was when she took over. That was one of her focus was to rehome and rehouse the retiring animals, and the injury rate did drop, according to her on her first watch. Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to our Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok.